All right, guys, welcome back for another episode of Shedcast, the shed hunting podcast for all things shed hunting. So today with us we have one of the OGs of shed hunting. So he's pretty well known, so most people aren't going to have an issue knowing or wondering who this is. So we got Eric Chesser with us today. Shed hunter, obviously, great content, great influencer kind of in the shed hunting and hunting world, and then part of the Hush crew, Rack Snacks, kind of you name it. He's going to kind of give us more of the lowdown on everything he's involved in, and looking forward to having some combo with you today. Eric, thanks for coming on, and go ahead and let everybody else know, and kind of we'll go from there.
Well, my name's Eric Chesser. I'm from West Jordan, Utah. I grew up here in West Jordan. It's just the Salt Lake City Valley. Place is growing like crazy. It's definitely not the same valley I grew up in, but I'm still here. You know, a lot of the hunting industry is here. I've got an international airport close by, so I enjoy living here. I'm used to it, but I'm right in the heart. You know, not downtown, but I'm in the heart of Salt Lake. But like Dale said, huge shed hunter. I shed hunted before I was a hunter. Not a lot of people know that part of the story. And I do create outdoor hunting and shed hunting content are kind of my two babies. And most of that content lives on the Hush YouTube channel. And for those who may have never heard of Hush, it is a word that was kind of put together by Casey for hunt and fish. So you put those two together, you create Hush. A lot of people think it's like a hunting brand, like Hush, like hush hush.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do that. There's a few partners involved in Hush, and then like you mentioned, I do have the Rack Snacks, which is kind of a side hustle, a passion project, where I take some of those antlers that I do find, cut them up, and sell them as dog chews. So that's kind of the rundown of me, who I am, what I do. Huge shed hunter, like passionate shed hunter. Have been since a young kid. Never skipped a beat, and I'll take it to my grave. I know it. I'll do this forever.
Yeah. Once I got it figured out, like kind of, I don't know, once I picked up my first shot, I think I was hooked from there and just kind of been chasing that ever since.
Mm-hmm.
With that, like you're right now, like this time of year though, like what are you up to this time of year? Kind
So
of resetting and kind of figuring things out for the year?
yeah, so December,
Yeah.
my season has like bled into December and sometimes January for these late season elk hunts. This year it
Yeah.
went into December. So since then, from now till mid February, we're focused on Hunting Expo. So the Western Hunt
Mhm.
and Conservation Expo is in Salt Lake every year, mid February. It's pretty much always over Valentine's weekend.
Mhm.
And, Hush takes a giant booth. I think our footprint is like 60 by 80. So it's a really interactive booth. We also
Mhm.
sell our merchandise on there, similar to this stuff I'm wearing, or, this
Mhm.
stuff. And people get to come and we just kind of hang out and do meet and greets, hang out with
Yeah.
people, swap stories, and take photos. So now till Expo, it's kind of head down on that type of stuff.
I know I've been wanting to go to that expo for so long, but I'm going this year for sure. Yeah, so
I
I'll be
mean,
there that day.
you got the Shedcast, man. I mean, for anybody who wants to
Yeah.
be a part of the hunting industry,
Yeah.
that's a great place to network.
Mhm.
Whether you're just bouncing around on the floor, you got a
Mhm.
backpack with some flyers, business cards, stickers, product,
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
Everyone, that's the who's who and businesses, and that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've been, like I said, it's just been like years I've been to see it, and then it comes up so quick, it's just like, oh crap, that was this weekend or this and that. I mean, now it makes sense what you're saying. It's kind of around the same time every year, which
Mm-hmm.
is cool. So I booked a flight. I'm going the first day, Thursday, and I'm literally just going the entire Thursday. Fly out that morning. I'm out of Arizona, so fly out that
Yeah,
morning, get there at like 7:40 a.m. and then fly back out at like 10 like 10 p.m.
cool.
I was like, that should
Yeah,
be enough, to run around.
that's.
So
I mean, if you're in the business, you're in the industry, you're networking. It's so
yeah,
worth it to come out Thursday. And just a pro tip for anybody who's not ever been,
yeah,
come on Thursday and Friday because Saturday is shoulder to shoulder. Sunday, it's just a disaster. Like companies are sold out of product. Like if you
mhm,
can come on Thursday for anybody who's going to
yeah,
travel, come on
yeah,
Thursday. It's clean. All the people have energy. By Saturday and Sunday, everyone who works there is just like a zombie.
yeah. It's everyone's fresh and ready to go for the whole
Mhm.
weekend. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then just kind of in the gym, kind of doing stuff, just getting prepped for shed season.
Yeah, so typically, I mean, I always try to stay healthy, but the winter usually
Yeah.
catches up to me and I'll usually put on 10 to 15 pounds. But this year on
Yeah.
January 1, I was like, okay, I'm going to put a pause because I was so active up to mid December elk hunting and really
Hmm.
hiking a lot. I never started to put on that winter weight. So I was like, you know
Hmm.
what? Usually I allow myself and give myself those excuses through
Hmm.
January, February, holidays. And then
Yeah.
here comes dead season and I'm out of shape. So this year I started an animal based diet on January 1 and I'm already at like my summer weight goal, which is 170. I don't think my body composition is quite where I want it, but
Hmm.
I'm just not gonna I just cut the excuses out and said, you know what? No reason to just allow yourself to gain that 15. Let's just keep it clean.
Yeah. Then you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to spend so much. Well, I mean, it's
It's
not.
hard to get it off.
Yeah, I was like, it seems like the older we get too, the harder and harder it is, like every time, because I do the same thing where I'm kind of like, hey, November, December, laxed a little bit and then start kicking it back into gear. But
Mhm.
same thing. Yeah, just, I mean, I freaking love lifting weights and stuff and then kind of seeing what you can do. I do like the animal-based diet style. Like I do like a mix of a lot of things, but I really try to eat. I don't like per se like I'm strictly to this one, but I try to eat as basic as possible. Like if it's around the edge of a grocery store, if you notice like
Yeah,
everything around the edge is all like the main
whole
stuff,
food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try
No,
to
it's
just
pretty
stick to
simple.
that.
I mean, there's like carnivore, which is like heavy on the meat, heavy on the
Yeah.
fat. You should roll into ketosis if you're doing that. A lot of
Hmm.
people I talk to, they love to do that for a short period of time to really cut some fat and
Yeah.
then transition to the animal based. So for those who are listening, it's literally my number one DM right now is like, Eric,
Yeah.
what is this? Like, what do you eat? So I'm not an expert, but red meat, so wild game, obviously,
Hmm.
beef, dairy, A2 products like cottage cheese, yogurt, milk.
Hmm.
I eat some fruits like avocado, berries, bananas, mangoes, apples, the basics. And
Hmm.
then my carb sources are pretty much white rice and sweet potato only, organic sweet potato. Those don't
Hmm.
upset my stomach. So
Hmm.
those two for the carbs, obviously the carbs that are and the sugars that are in the fruit, like the berries and the blueberries and strawberries. And then it's just the sweeteners are honey and maple syrup.
Hmm.
And for anybody who's listening to this who has never done it, try honey on red meat.
Yeah.
Dude, it's unreal. Honey on red meat is so good. And I do it with white rice and some elk burger and then just
Yeah.
drench it with honey, some salt.
I bet.
It's
Oh,
super
I
good.
bet it's good. Yeah. I think I put that on like seasoning before, but with like other stuff attached to it. So it's
Yeah.
like a little mix of like a sweet and spicy kind of,
Yeah, it kind
but
of
that was
caramelizes
good.
when you cook it too. I don't
Yeah.
usually cook in it. I add it after, but I have cooked with it and it kind of like caramelizes. That's
Yeah.
super good.
That sounds good. So, kind of getting back to, I guess, just the main reason why you're on is just kind of having you tell us your story. I know everybody's kind of got a story, and I feel like there's always so many good things that come out of those. So, kind of
Yeah.
tell us how you kind of got you started in shed hunting or kind of how you got started in it and how that evolved, I guess, over the years. And like you mentioned before, you're just saying how it's kind of even where you live has grown pretty substantially. So I'm sure that's changed over time.
Yeah, I mean, as far as how I got into shed hunting, the first time that I was growing up in California at the time. My dad is from Fillmore. It's a small community in central Utah.
Mm,
And he grew up hunting for food. Everything they had is, I mean, rabbits, grow a garden, shoot deer, eat it to sustain the family. When I was in California as a child, he would bring us to Utah to visit grandma and also sometimes to come back for the deer hunt as I got older. But, anyways, the first thing I saw in his old bedroom, which was, added on to the house and then eventually became the laundry room, there was a deer rack up there. It was a 4x4, total like 145 buck, but shellacked, like the old days. They used to just like put the clear coat on them.
mhm,
And I was a kid and I was like a huge animal lover, National Geographic type of kid, watching all those shows on TV growing up. I was like, Dad, what is this? He's like, that's my first mule deer ever. And I was like, oh, can I have it? And so we took the screws out and that was my pride and joy. I mean, it was my dad's first buck. I still have it. It's in the shop. But what that did was that just triggered something about like me and antlers. Like these are the coolest things. Then it must have been a year or two later where when I turned 12, my dad took me hunting in Idaho with his buddies. I was out with his buddy. Like we went out together into the
Mhm.
canyon or into the woods, and we sat down and sat there in glassing. And his buddy says, "Hey, look over there. I think that's a moose antler." And I'm like, of course you're not supposed to, but using the gun back in then, that is a moose antler. And that's kind of the first time I learned about they shed their antlers.
Mhm.
So we went over there and picked that up. It was a super nice Shiras moose. And then we walked up the hill, and I remember stepping up on an ant hill to kind of like get some elevation just to look for elk. And he goes, "Whoa, right there in front of you. Look at that, the other side." So, I mean, literally right in front of me, I just wasn't in the zone to be
Yeah.
looking for sheds. He picks up the other side, and sure enough, we had this giant Shiras moose set. And that just like when I picked up the one off the wall, like that triggered something like, holy
Mhm.
cow,
Just
these
lit the
come
fire.
off their heads.
Yeah.
And that's all I wanted to do. So back home around Salt Lake City, we've got a population of deer that come out of the high country and even elk now that come out of the high country, and they just kind of winter on the foothills of Salt Lake. If you see
Mhm.
anybody on Instagram, you've probably seen some of those photos where the valley's in the background. So they shed there, they shed right on the foothills of Salt Lake. So that same buddy was renting a house up the canyon, and my dad would go there and bring me because I could hike from his house up into the hills. And it's just that thick oak brush. Every now and then you get a patch of pines. And I remember right underneath the patch of pines, this is before I knew quite, like south slopes, elevation. I'm just a kid wandering around looking for
Mhm.
them. And sure enough, I see this white burr coming out of a sagebrush, and I'm like, I knew what it was. So I went over there, and it was my first ever shed antler. It was a 3-point mule deer, a really funky shaped one. Again, I still have that one in the shop
Yeah.
too. That's on that same day I found another one that was like super old, kind of like chalk. The forks had been, gnawed off and down, and it was chalk. It was cracked, moss on it and everything. But those were the first two sheds I'd ever found. And I just was addicted, like instantly. Every
Mhm.
time I could just get my dad. This is before I got a license. So started at like 12, 13. Just drop me off, let me hike, and then pick me up over there at the bottom of the canyon. So my dad would do that. He'd just send me off, and I'd come back, a couple sheds at a time. And that's where it
Yeah.
all started.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, back in the day out here too, we would just wander the deserts and BB guns in hand and just
Mhm.
whatever stuff. I feel like it's so different now for like kids nowadays. So it's there are a lot of young kids kind of picking up shed hunting early and doing their thing out there. It does seem like Salt Lake City is like the heart of like shed hunting and hunting like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny like to see so many like things coming out of that like little corner. And
Yep.
then obviously like the rest of the US is obviously really big too, but I feel like I do see quite a bit coming out of that corner where it's like a lot of good stuff,
No, it's
just like that.
the culture here is, it took, I kind of put these puzzle pieces together from all the experience that I had over the last 10 years traveling and meeting new people. One thing that people always say, you Utah guys are hardcore. Holy cow. Like my Arizona buddies will be like, you'll glass a shed off a cliff and you'll go down there and sleep down there and hike all day and drink out of springs. And this isn't for everybody, but my Arizona friends would be like, we just kind of up here by the roads, pick in and what we can. He's like, you Utah
Yeah.
guys are serious. And then on top,
Oh
I'd
yeah.
add that like the culture here is almost like we're very passionate people. So if you're a shed
Mhm.
hunter, like you live and breathe it. You wear the hats,
Mhm.
you wear the shirts. If you're a motocross guy, you live and breathe motocross. You wear the brands, you wear the hats. I
Yeah.
mean, so whatever
Yeah.
it is coming out of Utah, the people, whatever their passion is they find, like that is their lifestyle.
Yeah. That's
And that's
funny.
different when I go state to state. Like you said, I go back east and it's like maybe I'll find a guy with like a killer whitetail property and it's like, do you guys get them? Like, well, if we see them and yeah, I'll take my kids for a walk, but like Okay, but have you been back there in the woods? Have you really gritted that out? There's no, not really. Never really go back there.
Never thought
So like,
about it, never cared to. Yeah.
yeah, not to say that there's not a hardcore guy scattered out in there, but
Yeah.
I'm with you. Like people from Utah, man, pretty passionate.
Yeah, that's funny. How did you guys all get linked up? Because some of you guys met pretty young, right? When you're talking like Casey and Ben and all the like a lot of those like bigger guys that are coming out of there too, or even Wes, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like top guys kind of for like hunting and like
Mhm.
shed hunting kind of coming out of that vicinity too. And you guys all met pretty young, right?
I mean, not really. Like
Not
this
really.
all started. Casey's the one to give credit for bringing the hunting space to YouTube. So Casey's background is YouTube vlogging. He made a
Mm-hmm.
living with his family just kind of doing daily videos.
Mm-hmm.
His brother Shay Carl had a big channel called the Shay Tards, and Casey was able to learn from him and build his channel.
Yeah.
And he started the what is now the Hush channel used to be Casey with Levere or Hushin' with Levere, and he started that YouTube channel in 2011.
Oh,
So
okay.
as Instagram popped up, as YouTube popped up, and as we started to kind of like commit to digital content,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started making friends and meeting the Shed Crazies, the Martin Chags, the West.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't like all a bunch of childhood friends, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Maybe been some cross paths through like back in the day when I was a part of Times Up. There may be some Instagram like messages. I didn't know these folks until we really started committing to the YouTube platform and then just started making friends, getting to know people through social media, really.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Even then, I mean, that's still pretty cool, and it's just like the origination of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, yeah, I mean, I guess that really is the time when everything was starting to get big and digitize more and more. And like, I
Yep.
mean, Instagram hasn't even been around that long, even,
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of crazy.
No,
So,
and
well,
just, I mean, not to, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a complete dick, but I've been able to mentor Ben, mentor Martin, mentor Rise and Shed, mentor
mhm,
Big Time Crit. Like, obviously, I can't take credit for all their hard work, but
mhm,
we've had those sit downs, heart to heart. This is what you
mhm,
got to do. This is how you make the shortcuts.
mhm,
This is what partnerships are looking for. So I think just being here and all of us at Hush have been really open books when it
mhm,
comes to giving people what could be industry secrets.
mhm,
We've helped those guys really helped Born and Raised transition from the DVD to the digital. I know
mhm,
Brian and Casey spent a lot of time with them working on that. Randy Newberg, he took he invited us up to Montana. We did a podcast and then had us sit down and taught Randy about YouTube, and it was really cool because Randy came up to us. He's like, just so you guys know, and if anybody doesn't know Randy Newberg, look him up. He's an old school
mhm,
guy, and he was on network television.
mhm,
And when you're on network television, most of them had contracts that gave the network their content for 12 to 18 months before they could ever share it elsewhere.
mhm,
So Randy Newberg, he kind of butted heads with some of the network and how it works. Because typically in TV, say you're the real world on MTV, MTV is usually paying you to be a person on the channel, and you're bringing your personality and whatever, and you have value. In hunting, it used to be like we're the network. Oh, you buy your spot. So Joe Blow,
mhm,
anybody could have a TV show, and you saw that, right? Joe Blow, who
mhm,
was a millionaire, just went out and started a TV show, and he just bought his spot. So that's kind of
mhm,
how they're different. But Randy came up, and again, what I was just getting to is he gave us just a cool compliment. He's just like, you guys are light years ahead of the industry. The fact that you
mhm,
guys are doing digital content, you're making your own edits. They're not 22 minutes long with
mhm,
commercials, and everything is you start out story, you have to kill. There's a lot of rules in the network, and I don't know them all, but you can only have certain amount of videos without a kill.
mhm,
I mean, they really had to go out and get sponsors to help them financially, and then they really had to go get that content that could be a show. Where
mhm.
he saw like what you guys were doing was more realistic. It's just showing the ins and outs of hunting. Yeah, maybe you miss, maybe you don't get one. So from the get go, Randy was a big supporter and
Mhm.
super complimentive.
I've watched a lot of his stuff and listened to a lot of his podcasts and stuff too. He's got so much experience for one too when it comes to just outright hunting, and then
Mm-hmm.
on top of, like you said, just kind of learning with the new age as well compared to like probably people his age,
Yeah.
just kind of get out of the game at that point.
Well, I use Rand because like I'm 42. I really feel like I'm just scratching the surface in this
Yeah.
space, to be honest. Like I'm never satisfied. I'm always looking for the next thing.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be some transition in the hunting space over the next 5 years on, the influencers, whatever you want to call the content creators, are going to start getting equity in companies or building their own brands. Like the shift is
Hmm.
coming, and you're already seeing it in mainstream media, like mainstream industries like fitness or beauty or, whatever.
Hmm.
And that's what's fun about the hunting space is me and my partners can kind of like, I kind of always keep my eye on mainstream, and then I see what's going on and I just bring it to hunting, and people
Hmm.
think I'm some type of genius over here. And I'm like, dude, I'm just following the trends.
Yeah.
I'm just like 5 to 10 years behind in hunting. So it's pretty easy to kind of like stay ahead of the game if you're just
Hmm.
watching what's going on outside of hunting.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of changes, and I think it's going to really benefit those of us who have a podcast, those of us who have a big YouTube channel, Instagram, etc.
Hmm.
It's just going to get easier and easier for us to figure out a way to monetize it, to be honest.
And when people look at like you said, you're kind of scratching the surface when people look at, because I look at a lot of podcasts even outside of hunting too.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to some of those, they're like, there's still so many like things coming down like the pipeline that like
Yeah.
we have X amount of podcasts now, but like 5 years from now, there's going to be like tenfold more. So it's like you said, it's just you're kind of learning and paying attention to what's going all around you. I mean, that's important.
Yeah.
And then but then in the same token, there's also enough for everybody. Like we
100%.
talked about before we started rolling. It's like someone might not listen to this podcast, but they're diehard for another, and vice
Mhm.
versa. And it's all like kind of crossing information and stuff, and kind of what you're doing, when you're putting stuff out for people. Hopefully you're adding value, because that's my intention with
Yeah.
this, is to just add value to it. Like there are people who will sit there and just curse at shed hunting, like, oh, you're wasting your time, you're doing this, you're doing that. But I love it. It's fun to do, it's cool to get out, it's good for you. So it's just one of those things. I don't know, it's just like a naturally drawn to it just for whatever reason. But I'm here now, so it's like I want to make a little, put my foot in the door and
Yeah.
have fun with it. But then there's also plenty of room for whoever else comes after that, or
There
whatever this
always is.
inspires. Yeah.
There always is. And, so many people unfortunately have that limited mindset of like,
Hmm.
well, there's already Hush, there's already Joe Rogan, there's already Cam Hanes, there's already podcasts. Like,
Hmm.
you're never going to get anywhere in life if you just allow that to, hold you back from creating something that you're passionate about. There's always space. And the
Hmm.
fun thing about the digital content is it's really the audience that gets to say who's successful.
Hmm.
So you can't really like come in the hunt space and like hit the fast forward button or go
Hmm.
viral one time and then suddenly you're the guy. In
Hmm.
the hunting space, it's a slow burn, and it's
Hmm.
only those who are willing to do it for, I used to tell like the Martins, the Shed Crazies, like Whitetail Fit, like whoever does this for the next 3 to 5 years consistent will be the guys who are going to be able to make it a living.
Hmm.
But that's also not the only way to measure the success. So it's like if you have a why, if you have a mission statement, and you stick to that, you're never going to fail. So my personal
Hmm.
mission statement for just as me is to impact lives positively daily by sharing the things I love. So
Hmm.
that's health and fitness, hunting, shed hunting. Heck, now it's even like rescuing dogs. Like, so if I'm impacting lives positively, like I'm never going to fail. Now,
Hmm.
how you monetize it is really, that's a lot of things. I mean, it's
Hmm.
how good are you at negotiating? Do you understand how to monetize it? Are you selling a product? Do you understand
Hmm.
revenue share codes? Like there's a lot to learn there, but again, if you don't focus on the money
Hmm.
and you focus on the mission, you can't fail as long as you
Mhm.
stay true to your mission.
Yeah. And that's why like you kind of know too, I have a career outside of this. I have like other things going on that I like have my hands in and trying to do, trying to,
Mhm.
but it does all circle back around to everything that I do is like kind of the way I look at it for me is like my purpose that I've kind of lived by and like kind of done in the past because I was in the military for 8 years and then now I'm a nurse in the emergency room and then
Mhm.
my other side business, is like kind of just offering like a service to people. Like I'm like just like a life of service is what I call it. Kind of just like doing things for other people in hard times, in easy times, whatever the case may be, like I have a point to like impact people in positive ways and this is like another way to do that too, in a like a hobby sport and stuff like that people want to do and sometimes people want to try this out for the first time or the 100th time. And if there's any little tidbit, a tip or information or a story they hear that inspires them to do something good or to go out and find a shed, or maybe they haven't talked to their family in 20 years and they're like some sort of story they hear on here rekindles that, then
Mhm.
I've done my job at the end of the day, so I kind of like it in that aspect, like I'm going to keep going and I feel like I don't know. I don't know if it's old school or what. I know there's a lot of new schoolers that do it too, but I had a long time ago, my grandma, one time I was cleaning and doing something, and I'm like, she's like, you got to put some elbow grease on. And I'm like, what is that? She's like you need to work harder, and I'm like,
Uh,
okay, like it just clicked. And I'm like, wow, that like made so much sense. And like, I just feel like I've always just never always had like the easy path. I don't always have the easiest route to something, but it's like I still
mhm.
just work right towards it, So
Yeah. Yeah, you got to be fearless, man, and you have to learn a lot of different things. And say you want to come in the hunt space and do either a podcast or a website or content that pushes
Mhm.
commerce, you got to wear a lot of hats, man. And if you are fearless and willing to learn, like for example, when I first started, a lot of these duties have been handed off to people to free up my time and also because they're way better at it. But
Mhm.
I can run a website back end. I can build products on Shopify. I can update, my mobile app, edit videos, make videos, export videos, upload them
Mhm.
to YouTube, edit. So like you have to wear a lot of hats at first and it,
Oh
it
yeah.
can be really overwhelming.
Mhm.
Like I've never messed with like audio, visual, kind of like podcast stuff. And I know like
Mhm.
if I wanted to start a podcast, Eric would have to go learn, where do you record? Where does it
Yeah.
go? How do you line it up on a timeline to export it to all the different,
Mhm.
platforms? So yeah, you got to be really willing to learn a lot and wear a
Yeah, I
lot.
like that. Kind of like a jack of all trades, like you're saying.
You've got to.
Yeah, that's what I do on the back end here. I mean, I'm doing all my own edits. I had one where I had some help with it, and we recorded in a studio here, and then I mean, just the one before that, and then all the other ones have all been me. And I do the reels, I do all the posting, all that stuff. I just kind of use different various tools to like do it. So I'll be like in one app cutting and like splicing, and then I go to the next app and I throw my captions in, and then I go back over here,
Yeah,
and
dude.
then I'm sure people would look at it and be like, "Okay, this is inefficient," but I'm like, "This is the way I know how to do it," and it's like working.
I had this thought today as I was building some dog chew stuff. And if you want to go down that route, we should. But
Hmm.
it just crossed my mind like because again jack of all trades, what I've
Hmm.
done in this day, from waking up and going to the gym to some Zoom calls to some product
Hmm.
development, planning the expo, planning a movie night, and then I'm out here just like cutting dog shoes. I'm like, it'd be really fun for somebody to just what do they call it, like intern for a day or shadow me for a day, just
Yeah.
so they can learn and like see, because
Hmm.
that might be all it took, like for me to
Hmm.
grab those one sheds, that's all it
Hmm.
took. If someone just saw, dang, Eric did this, that, like,
Hmm.
okay, now I know the back end. Now I can make sense of the front end, which is the
Hmm.
content and the YouTube and the website.
Hmm.
And I was literally just thinking like, man, is there anybody in Salt Lake who just wants to float around with me for a day just to see what this is all
Yeah.
about? You know what I
Oh,
mean?
I'm sure that line would be long for sure. So there people are going to be listening to this. They're going to hear that and
Getting
blow
DMs,
your DMs
Eric,
out on.
I'm ready to shadow you today. I would love that, man, because it goes back to what you said. If
Yeah.
I'm bringing value to someone, if someone could come learn from me, I'm all about
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, I spend hours where I get nothing out of it other than it's just a great brainstorm
Mm-hmm.
sesh. It's homie to homie
Mm-hmm.
guy time. But dude, I'll sit down and teach people how to do this, teach people how to do that, motivate them. That's giving back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always see it. And I don't even need to be. I don't need those people to go out and say that I did it. But that brings fulfillment to me, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'll always try to help others when I can.
And I think when you have a full cup like that, it helps you pour it into others for
100.
sure, which is like tenfold, it keeps flowing just onto the next,
I'm going to take something back. I said, usually I don't get much out of it. I'm going to take that back. I can learn from guys like you who are,
Mhm.
just starting, right? I can learn from content creators that have less followers. So
Mhm.
I'm going to peel that back a little bit, take that back. When you sit down and have a session, I learn a lot from doing that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's not exactly what I meant, but now hopefully
No.
you and the listeners can get it. Like I learn from people who I
Yeah.
try to mentor. We're all just helping each other.
Yeah. No, I feel like that makes perfect sense. One, learning from each other too, like we talked about earlier. Just someone may say something that just sparks an idea in your head, or they tell you a story that's like their lesson learned becomes your lesson learned, So it's
Mm-hmm.
like that stuff just keeps going and going and
Yeah,
going. And I mean, I used to work construction and stuff back in the day, so it's like I've had older guys like talking to older guys, and they just say something that's like I've never forgotten. And that
yeah,
was probably over 20 years ago,
I,
So it's like just random things about life, love, money, I mean,
oh yeah,
just anything. It's pretty funny. So how some of those little things just kind of stick with people or change their life, like
for
all
sure,
together.
for sure.
But no, yeah, I mean, I do want to go down that path with your rack snacks if you want to just kind of elaborate. I've kind of heard the story, but I do love that story. So I do want to hear and want everybody else to kind of hear how that came about and what it's all about.
Yeah. So Rack Snacks is an antler dog chew business. So being a shed hunter for most of my whole life, we typically pile up a set of sheds. And for most people, it's like, it's not about selling those sheds. Clearly, we just are out there to get fulfilled, find the sheds, get the adrenaline dump. We always seem to want to keep a few sets, keep your favorites, keep your most memorable ones. But, at some point they pile up. And what do most people do? We sell them to the antler buyer. So I did that my whole life. And that money is also more gas money to do it again. I was at a point where I could go sell one brown 6 point, fill up my tank, and like it was literally a trade off. It was like, okay, if I give these up, I get more gas money to go do it again. And so, I would say there's hardly anybody that truly shed hunts mostly for the money. It's usually where our addiction is fed through it, but it can
Hmm.
create some money. Let's be honest.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that money can help us fund next season or a pair of
Hmm.
binoculars or a scope. So I've
Hmm.
always sold them to the antler buyer, and that's fine. It's been interesting to see the market go up and down over the years. I got into buying antler for a couple seasons, and I was working with Tex Creek Antler. Those guys always took care of me, and they would basically front the bulk of the money. I'd go out and purchase, come back, and then, whatever was the gravy on the top, that's the
Hmm.
money I made. So through that process, and obviously everybody knows at some point, like, because once anyone knows you're a shed hunter, how many people go, I saw a piece this big for $25 at PetSmart.
Hmm.
So we all know that like they're really expensive, cut up to dog chews. So in
Hmm.
addition to when I would buy, I got to understand the market, and the dog chews did raise the value in the industry. And most of the antler was going bulk over to Asia for medicinal purposes and all that fun stuff. They use them as aphrodisiacs over
Yeah.
there. So I knew the ins and outs, man. It's not rocket science. Like they're worth more as a dog chew than they are by the pound. All right, let's see what that means. So I typically never had enough space. I'd get a giant stack in my living room, like, God, I got to get these out of here,
Mhm.
make 2 or 3 grand, whatever. And one year when I bought this house, this is my first home I've ever purchased. Because I had more space, I had, I could keep them. So there was a year
Mhm.
where I just had the pile, and it was a good year. I mean, I had my
Mhm.
best year that year. And I really just felt inside there was a reason for me to hold on to them, and I didn't understand why at the time.
Mhm.
that same year, my brother started to tear out my parents' carpet, and he was gonna, put in like a floor, like not the hardwood, but like, the kind that you can build out, laminate or
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I just, there was kind of a moment where I'm like, all right, my parents are getting older. Like if he's gonna do the floor, gosh dang, why don't we do the walls as well? Or why don't we bust out those walls and make that
Mhm.
kitchen my mom wanted? So it went from like a small idea to like a really big idea.
Mhm.
And with that, my way to give back to my parents, because they've supported me my whole life. We weren't financially well off all the time. And at times they would, ask if I could pay rent, ask if I could pay the light bill. And I was that punk kid who was just stubborn, like, why would I pay the light bill when like you're already going to have a light bill if I live here or not, like kind of have a bad attitude. Like I didn't understand
Yeah.
at that time, maybe paying these small bills could have really helped my parents.
Mhm.
But I was also not making a ton of money myself, as a young
Mhm.
adult or in that out of high school area. So, the money has been good with Hush. Like we did really well, at least for me. But I'm used to living on pennies. So
Mhm.
when I say we did well,
Mhm.
that's like good, but it's not like, yo, we're just freaking banking, right? So
Yeah.
I'm so used to living on so little that when we started to make like an average or a little above average income, I had a nest egg and I told my brother and my sister, I'm going to go talk to mom and dad and see if they truly want to live in this house because it's a half acre empty nest. Do they want to maintain a large house? Do they want to maintain, a half acre of grass? So I had that heart to heart with my parents, and they really felt like this property was the only thing that they had to give us kids once they, you know, once they pass away. So I'm like, all right, if that's the case, I would love to gift you guys a remodel, and um, I want to do it as a thank you, and I want to give back. So started the project. My friend Zach Gordon, bless his heart, he did the contract work for nothing. He managed all the little things, and then as this came out on my social media, people just stepped up to help because they knew I was doing it for my parents. So I met so many cool people. I had
Mhm.
a plumber come out who I already knew from social media. He helped me, and like again, they're just not they're charging me cost or they're doing me favors because they just think it's cool that I'm helping my parents. Glass, we were going to do one window that needed to be knocked out and redone. Ended up doing all the windows because the price, I just couldn't pass it. So
Mhm.
as things became ideas, the project just rolled into like something greater, going from like swamp cooler that doesn't work to central air. Like
Yeah.
everything just got upgraded. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to earn some extra money, and earn is the key word because I don't want handouts. If people want to contribute, like it's hard to say no when someone's trying to do something good, but no one was just giving me money. But going back to that is like, I need to earn some extra money. And it was like a stack of antlers put on social media. Hey guys, if I cut these antlers up and I'm trying to raise some money for my family to remodel, would you guys purchase dog chews? The support was overwhelming, dude. It was
Mhm.
wild. Like I was DMing orders like, how do you want to pay? PayPal, Venmo. Okay, what's your address? I mean, I was handling all this, and for a month straight, I probably sold $11,000 of dog chews.
Wow.
So that really helped pay for the
Quick too.
remodel. It was, four
Yeah.
times that, but that was great. People were stepping up to help, support,
Mhm.
and getting a product that they can use for their dog. So it's like, all right, cool. This dog industry is interesting. Like I get it. People, I didn't have dogs at the time, but I'm like, people love their dogs. I hear it. They're like family. They want them to be healthy. And I truly believe that an antler chew is like the greatest organic dog chew. I mean, it's a natural dog chew. It's full of
Mhm.
calcium. It scrapes their teeth. It fulfills their desire to chew. So it's like, all right, this is too much. I can't handle it. I should build a website. And then I was brainstorming about what names I should do. And again, through all the years of all this stuff that I've done between Times Up and Hush, I learned how to make a Shopify website. So I'm like, I can do it. I know how to go to GoDaddy, get a .com, create an LLC. I know the whole process. So I'm like, I'm going to start a website. And it's hard to get a .com because every word is invented and everything is used. So it was Jordan Harbertson's wife that came up with the name Rack Snacks.
Mhm.
And clearly, if you spell it the correct way, it's used in industries, and a rack is known as an antler. So I was like, all right, go. Just like my Outfitted brand, I had to misspell it on purpose to
Mhm.
get the .com. I was like, I'll
Mhm.
just misspell Rack Snacks with RAKSNAKS. I'll remove the two C's. Sure enough, go to GoDaddy and racksnacks.com is like $2. You know? So I get Rack Snacks everything. Racksnack.com, racksnack.net. I try to secure all those. And then
Mhm.
I had the original Rack Snacks Instagram, which got closed. I'll tell you about that. The long story short, when I secured the name, I also, this is my business mind goes, I better make sure that RAK doesn't stand for anything like gang slang or any street word.
Yeah.
Literally Google on my phone, RAK meaning. And the first thing that popped up is?
The random acts of kindness.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
that's
right
awesome.
underneath it, it says Random Acts of Kindness Day is February 17th. And this is literally the end of January when I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it's one of those things where everything happened for a reason. Everything's
Mhm.
fell into place at the right time.
Mhm.
So I'm like, dude, it's Random Acts of Kindness, which was why I did it in the first place to help my
Yeah.
brother. A lot of people did Random Acts of Kindness for me to help my family. So I'm going to build this Random Acts of Kindness through the selling dog chews. And I secured the .com and I launched it on February 17th, Random Acts of Kindness Day.
Mhm.
So everything just worked together. And the mission statement of that is you just through sales of dog chews allows me to do more random acts of kindness. So we've done it
Mhm.
all. Like we've helped people, we bought their gas, we've surprised them with, cash. Like we've done a lot of the fun stuff,
Mhm.
like social stuff.
Mhm.
But since I do have dogs now, we've been able to help a lot of the shelters and
Mhm.
a lot of these dog rescue places.
Mhm.
We're always just looking for opportunities to give back to both the people, because just the community in general. We've we've sponsored like some giving trees and Christmas time.
Mhm.
Obviously, the dog space, and the next chapter for Rack Snacks is to get involved with wildlife. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the three, like humans, dogs, and pets, and elk, right? Like
Yeah.
elk and deer. I mean, I only sell elk.
Yeah.
So that's Rack Snacks in the whole. And I've had I've just met so many cool people. Like one person I'd like to shout out is Jaden Russell. He
Mhm.
came over to buy some Rack Snacks before it was a thing. Him and his wife got some because they wanted to support the cause. Showed him my shop, had a good time, and that guy he spent hours with me cutting and sanding with literally wanting nothing from it. He just wanted to give back, and so it's been a fun project, man. That's Rack Snacks in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, I mean, in general, just the idea, just how everything kind of fell into place and just where you were like at mentally and like it with your heart in that right space, and it just kind of
Mhm.
all fell together is like a really cool story. That's why I definitely wanted you to share that. And then just that's kind of the cool part about random acts of kindness. Like if you have the means to do it and you just feel like this is the right thing to do, and then those opportunities will just they continue to present themselves, right? So you're just like, hey, I can do this, or that, or this, or that. And it just works out and it's really nice. I know you had mentioned before too, it's like people are kind of like, well, that's the point of not sharing those random acts. But I think yes, on a daily basis, but then also I think that that's hugely important because there's so much negative like on the internet or on social platforms that when those things kind of come across your feed and then they truly do just
Hit.
like reignite that fire. Yeah, they pull on your heartstrings. You're just like, then you in turn want to turn around and like make sure you're kind of being mindful about that and doing things,
Yeah.
whether that's like a family member or somebody totally that you have no idea of.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
I think,
It's a
yeah,
fine line, right? And I've shared
yeah,
some stuff, and that's the pushback is, hey, this is really cool, you're doing it, but you should keep it to yourself. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm trying to find that balance, because trust me, there's a lot more you don't know about, like
Mm-hmm.
special or deep ones, or that you don't know about. No one needs to know about. Like, I'll cherish
Mm-hmm.
those times, but like I also feel a duty to be pretty transparent with Rack Snacks, because like if I don't show anything, people are going to be like, hey, because I have a tip button where people can tip money. So I'll just
Mm-hmm.
calculate it like per quarter or year. It might be
Mm-hmm.
$100, $200, and I'll be like, guys, I'll triple it and we'll go do 500. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
people have the ability to just like literally gift the Rack Snacks Random Acts of Kindness campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And that just funds more stuff. But if I don't share it, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like people are going to be like, hey, where's this going? So if I'm, we donated $500 to a rescue that we
Mm-hmm.
work with, and they found like a pit bull mom in a dumpster pregnant, and, had to have an emergency C-section. And sure, the $500 didn't even pay for that. But, I'll share
Right.
that story to just let people know what's going on with these invisible funds, because I don't have a number. I'm like you said, if it feels right and it's coming from the heart, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to do it more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's that pushback, But I'm like you, man. If I'm rolling on Instagram and it's like, you see somebody, maybe they have video goggles or something, and they go up and ask somebody, hey, do you have $1? And they're like, yeah, man, I do. And he's like, hey, I'm going to give you 100 back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they literally purposely went out to do that, to show people that it's nice. And like you can be inspired by that. I think it's okay. Sure, is
Mm-hmm.
there like sentimental ones that's like, yo, you don't need to tell us that mowed your neighbor's 80-year-old neighbor's lawn, but like, I mean, you can or you can't. You can choose to share
Yeah.
it or you can choose to keep it, but
Yeah.
people should not critique it negatively, because there is the butterfly effect, and I believe in that. If I
Mm-hmm.
put out something good, like it multiplies of good. And if you put
Mm-hmm.
out something negative, it multiplies negatively.
Probably tenfold that, honestly.
That's kind
You
of
know what I mean? Like,
the rule I
yeah.
live by, man. Like if you're putting something good out there and it's going to positively domino, then
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't worry about. It's kind of like the same thing. When you're successful, people, you have haters, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you do good things, you're also going to have a hater. You shouldn't let it
Oh
slip.
yeah. I don't even have a large following, and I've seen some negative comments on mine. I'm like, what the heck?
Will you
You know,
tell
it
me
just
real quick,
cracked.
like, where did this idea come from and the name?
The Shedcast. I mean, like I mentioned before, my love for podcasts in general. Like I've listened to so many different podcasts. That's so much information. And so through the years, like just wanting to, and this comes to every facet of like my job or my last jobs, like when I was in the military, and just like wanting to learn. So like I just kind of have that like drive to like if I'm learning about something, I kind of want to know like the fundamentals of it and this about it or that about it. So that way you can like understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, you know? And so I just kind of was like thinking about it, and I was searching for like podcasts, and I listened to a lot of different shed hunting podcasts for like tips and tricks or like stories and stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of times when you're listening to a podcast, to me it feels like you're having a conversation, like you're sitting at the table, people are sitting at the table with us right now having
Yeah,
this conversation, you know? So
yeah,
it's kind of cool because I'll be driving down the road and I'm listening to a podcast, and they start laughing and I start laughing, you know? So it's kind of funny. But and then so I just was like kind of trying to think of like names and stuff that I liked, like, and there was no there's a ton of different hunting podcasts, and like I said, there's information out there that are coming from different corners that apply to different people, but there wasn't anything specific for just shed hunters, you know? So I was like, well, you know, because I'm like constantly searching for that shed hunting like as my like topic, and then I'm finding it and listening to it, you know,
yeah.
whether it's like Western stuff, Eastern stuff. I just listen to it all because I've lived in different places too when I was kind of stationed in different areas. So I shed hunted different places, and I was like always trying to figure it out, or like what's the best strategy or this and that. And so I just kind of was just like thinking of names and running through different things. And I'm like, you know, I went through so many different things, antler this or tying that, you know, and just different things. And then, like you said, you look around and you're like, you think of a name and you're like, oh, that's perfect. And then you look at it and it's gone, you know, you're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, toss that one out, you know? And so then I was just like, well, I mean, it's shed hunting, shedcast, it's a podcast, and I kind of just like randomly shoved them together, and I was like, shedcast sounds kind of cool, you know?
Yeah.
And then everyone's kind of just like, man, you're kind of crazy. You're already busy enough, you know? Like, you
Yeah.
think you can do that?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I'm like, I mean, it's something I like to do so that conversations flow naturally, you know? I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to get people on. Some people flat out say no, and that's okay too if they don't want to come on and talk, you know? And then other people have no problem with it, you know? I don't
Yeah.
get paid for it. So it's like, in fact, I pay to do all this stuff. I
Yeah.
pay to set it all up and do it, but it's like fun and exciting, you know? And then, like I mentioned before, I'm like putting out that information that I myself was looking for, and maybe somebody else is too, you know? So
Yeah.
it kind of naturally brought it around. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. When the first thing I saw was from Nicholas, Deep Rooted Outdoors.
Hmm.
I met him in Colorado. We did the trip bull hunt. And then the
Hmm.
first thing I did was screenshot your name and send it to Ben Shed Crazy. I'm like, hey, remember when you pitched me the Shedcast? I was like, he's like, yep, just another idea I had that someone else actually followed through with. So I want to touch on that real quick. Like,
Yeah.
this has crossed my mind in conversation, and I want to share
Hmm.
it on here because I think it's so true. And it is so fun for anybody to kind of be in the dreaming phase or the fantasizing phase. This is what I call it. There's a hard line. This
Hmm.
side of the line is just fun and exciting because you can dream with your friend. Hey, what if we made the Shedcast? What if we did this? What if we made that dream YouTube channel or made that the next product that's going to sell $1 million worth? The
Hmm.
fantasizing is so fun. The
Hmm.
moment you cross the line of what I call taking action,
Hmm.
it changes because the hard work comes in.
Hmm.
And what you do when you cross that line from actually taking action to do it is you open yourself up for criticism,
Hmm.
right? It's fun to just be like, Shedcast would be so cool, man. We can do that. And like you just said, people were like, dude, you don't have the time. I don't know if anybody, really, if there's really a niche in shed hunting. I don't know if it'll
Hmm.
ever be anything. And unfortunately, one, not many people cross the line to take action, and some do. And then they get that negative stuff in their ear and they quit because people told them, you can't do that.
Hmm.
And hey, there's already a YouTube channel. Hey, there's already, where do you think you're going to fit in? People are already selling shirts and hats,
Hmm.
and I just want to say this, like, props to you for creating an idea.
Hmm.
It's so fun to think about. You probably told your buddies, probably told your wife, I'm going to do this podcast, right? Everyone was like, yeah, yeah, hype, hype. And then you took the leap. And from that moment on, you had to get the microphone, get the gear.
Hmm.
You have to be vulnerable and text guys like me, like, hey, would you come out and do this podcast? Obviously, some are going to say no, some are going to say yes.
Hmm.
So props to you for just taking action, following through, and now you have a shed hunting podcast. This could one day become like, dude, it's the world's biggest shed hunting podcast, right? Sky's the limit, man. That's
Yeah,
what's
sky's
so
the
fun
limit.
about it.
I just saw one today actually. So and with that, even you open the door to other people to get that inspiration, you know. I saw Mile High Pursuit, he posted today that he's going to come out with
Dedicated.
one, it seems like dedicated, you know. So like they're already opened that door. I don't think I'm his sole inspiration for that, but sometimes people see that and they're like, I mean, he's got a bigger following than I do, you know, and
Well,
I hope for the best for everybody. So
well, I would
I,
assume that he has thought about it for years, right?
Mhm.
And then he saw, I guarantee he saw a reel of yours. And it's not about competition. Like in this
No.
space or any space, people need to have an abundance mindset, right? I can
Mhm.
just come in here and get my sliver of the pie or whatever it means
Mhm.
to be successful.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't doubt that he saw this and was like, hey, like people are doing it. Like
Mhm.
I had that idea. I'm going to actually now take the leap of faith and put it out there.
Mhm.
So I direct messaged him like, let's do this. Like put me on.
Mhm.
Because we've been talking about going on a shed hunting trip. But yeah, it's cool, and like you said, it will inspire somebody to go do it. How
Mhm.
far anybody takes it is really up to their work ethic and how much they're willing to
Work.
do it for
Yeah.
money for a long time. There'll
Yeah.
be no money, until you figure it out.
Yeah. No, exactly. It can be tough at times, but I mean, there's so many in like this and like anything else. There's also so many programs. I mean, CapCut is a big one, you
Yeah,
know. there's another one from that one last week when CapCut wasn't working, you know, and I like went over to that one and that one worked out pretty good, you know. So it's like there's still so many tools like at hand, way more now than when you guys started, which
Yeah,
is another thing I wanted to ask you about too. Like you've seen this thing increase tenfold with the amount of tools. YouTube has created so many different tools and then their own app for like managing your YouTube and all that and stuff. So it's like all these different sites have so many like tools at your fingertips that can also help increase like just the quality of work, you know? So
100%.
that's always
Like
been cool. Yeah.
that's a fun topic because I want to show people this real quick. I'm gonna my personal Eric Chesser, which it's called Eric Chesser Outside. It's kind of become like a vlog channel. I'll just show off a little bit around the house and stuff. But this thing was started in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, sometimes I don't even remember how I got content off my old tapes to YouTube. Like, I wish I can go
Yeah.
back to my parents' basement and be a fly on the wall because I did not know what the heck I'm doing. But I am, in some ways, I don't know if this is the right word. I'm jealous of the tools the young kids have now to do what I do because I had to go through, they got the shortcuts. I mean, look at
Mm-hmm.
Big Time Crit or Martin or even a Ben. I mean, they just kind of like came in and the tools were there and they got to learn how to get sponsors. And I had to learn
Mm-hmm.
all of that for years, starting
Mm-hmm.
with old tapes. And then how
Yeah.
you got those tapes onto digital to edit it, to put it on YouTube was like you had to be a damn expert back then, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but again, I found a way. Like I have videos from 2000 on my channel. If you go all the way back down the library,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just proof that if you're willing to learn, like we said earlier in this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, you can make anything happen. But there is no better time than now because the tools are so easy. And this goes for Shopify. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to sell a product, I mean, it's like drag and drop, like header photo, click, product
Yeah.
photo, click. Like, dude, I used to have to do WooCommerce and learn how to do coding. So I'm like Googling like how to center, like how to make this text yellow and how to make it in the center of the web page.
Oh
It was
yeah.
like / yellow dot, you know, like,
Yeah.
but
The
again, I
coding
did
was
it.
so tough.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of jealous how
Yeah.
easy it's become for this next generation. And
Yeah.
that goes for
Definitely.
every tool. They got maps. It's pretty fun to watch like this generation below us are hardcore, right? So they got to
Mm-hmm.
see maybe me and some other guys sleep out there, do shed hunting trips, use maps to look at elevation and water sources. That next generation, bro, there's teenagers doing what I'm doing. Like I never did that as a teenager, sleep
Yeah.
out there, but they have the best backpacks, the best pillows, the best hiking boots, you know, maps on their phones.
The
So it's
lightest
kind of
gear.
like, man, you guys got it made, you know?
Yeah. That's what's funny. That's why I said one of the true OGs of it because I mean, starting it back and how big was the camera you were filming off of, you know? Like
Yeah, it was the old high eight. So I have messed with like the GL2s that had the little
yeah,
shoulder strap, but for what I
yeah,
like, I got the smallest one at the time and it's just a little
yeah,
Sony Handycam.
yeah. But even then, I mean, and sometimes I even ask myself like I'm working on something or trying to figure something out. I'm like, how the heck did I figure that out? You know? Or like you just make it work, like you said. You're just willing to go through whatever it takes to
Yeah.
get there. So it really doesn't matter what kind of obstacle comes your way because I'm climbing over it regardless, you know?
Yeah,
So
and YouTube is such a, you know, I call it YouTube University. You learn whatever
mhm.
you want on there, and
Yeah.
thankful for other people who put how-to videos on there. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how I learned so much, so much.
Yeah. Yeah, you can literally do so much on there.
Yeah, if do you do a video version of this stuff?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna share this for the video. People who are listening to audio, if you get a chance, go listen to video. But this is me, like just out of high school. I've now
No
been able
beard.
to take
Yeah.
these tapes and put them on digital and like airdrop them. But that right there is my camera bag. So
Oh,
young
and across the
ET was binos on a rubber strap and a giant like camera
camera.
satchel, and that's where I would just pull it out. and
Even
film
the
all that stuff.
that's crazy. Even the camo too, like that looks like real, like some of that jean type or real thick.
Yeah,
The
well,
camo come a long ways.
my great aunt on my mom's side owns the local General Army Navy surplus store.
Oh,
So I
gotcha.
grew up wearing used BDUs from the Army,
Yeah.
having all that gear. And I mean, that's what I wore to school too. I was always made fun of for it. I'd have like skater shoes because I was a skateboarder and
Yeah.
like BDUs. And I thought it
Uh,
was cool, but people just made fun of me.
now look at how the kids are dressing. They dress just
They're
like
all
that.
wearing camo.
And they're back in baggy pants.
Mm.
And big old shoes again. They're making their way around.
Yeah, I
So,
can't get on that train. Like Janko's giant straight leg
yeah.
pants. Like I look at it and I'm like, yo, I get that it was in style and I participated, but not this go around.
Not disco. Yeah, the mullets thing was what got me that circled back around.
Yeah.
That one was
It's
funny.
funny how styles change like that.
And then they just, yeah, that is super funny. My kids are like the same. My daughter literally wears big baggy pants or like
Mhm.
doesn't mind wearing the camo now.
Yep.
So it's like easier to convince her like, here's some camo,
Oh, dude,
Like
all my guy friends who have like teenage daughters, they're literally come over with their girlfriends and raid their old camo. They go cut it into swoop necks and stuff. Like that's the thing right now. It's wild.
wow,
I should
that's
probably
funny.
get on that for Hush and make like some teenager camo hoodies and
Oh
pants,
yeah.
something like
It's
that
out there, man. Be easy.
for sure.
Everyone likes it too. Like, yeah. Easy swoop for you guys on that one.
Yeah. Well, I know that we haven't really pinpointed some shed hunting stuff. So before we get off this, if you want to redirect to like something that you think a shed hunter could learn, let's
Mhm.
let's hit that before we end this.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so some of the, I guess back to the shed hunting portion, kind of some of the shed hunting strategies that we've talked about, kind of a little bit tidbits here and there about like kind of that change in tools and stuff. So when you're like you go back to places year after year, I'm sure you're familiar with doing it, so it's easy to pick a place that, hey, this looks like shed should be there. But I've also heard you say on like other podcasts or something the word heavenly. So like when you describe a place, right? We always, whether you're driving down the road or you're hiking in a mountain, like you look at some place and you're like, it would be so cool to see a giant elk just step out from behind that tree because it looks so perfect, but sometimes that's not always the case, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you how does like shed hunters listening to this kind of decipher what's heavenly, what's not, and then like kind of go from there to get into them, or like what things can they look for to like weed out a dead zone versus like a good spot?
Yeah, well, obviously the first it just depends on how much knowledge that person has. Let's just say that someone has like pretty basic knowledge and they want to go to a new unit. The biggest thing I look for to begin with is I'll look at like a mountain range aerial view on Onyx and like just see like where the peak is, if that mountain range
Mhm.
runs east and west or north to south. And then from there, where are like the largest funnels? I'm talking like big, like giant canyons that can come off like what you would consider like summer or rut areas, but then would funnel down into a winter range, whether that be just a giant canyon with a south slope and a north slope. And it literally peters all the way down into the valley and into the sagebrush. Those big ones would be my first go to. That's where my eyes go to first. And then I would just study the south slopes are obviously the big thing.
Mhm.
I think that's why I struggle with New Mexico because some of those bulls that don't get any snow, they wander. And I go down there and I'm like, dude, I can't pinpoint them. But just to stick to like what I know in Utah is like, okay, a big funnel that comes down to the valley almost and has a big south slope. And then I try to find, is that south slope got winter range like sagebrush, oak brush, juniper trees, mahogany trees? And then you just like narrow it down. And then obviously you've got to get boots on the ground and you'll know
Mhm.
real quick. In at least in the peak of the shed season, you'll know right away. So how to tell, like you said, is this a money spot or is this a dead zone? When you're walking in a dead zone fresh out of winter and spring, the dirt's not even turned. I have a term for it, and I was trying to remember it because I'm like, I think I'll get on the radio with my friends, like, dude, it's literally barren wasteland over here. Like a squirrel hasn't even kicked up a rock. Like it's got the
Yeah.
mold, the snow's melted off. It's just got this
Yeah.
like,
That fresh look to it. Yeah.
that's like deuces. They're not here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first couple months of shed season, if it's gonna be the pocket, it's gonna have beds, water, obviously a water source nearby, but the sign just, you can't fake the sign. So tracks,
Mm-hmm.
piles of bull poop. You got to be able to determine when, like, okay, this is clearly 30 cows and calves, or is this like 6 bulls? So you
Mm-hmm.
really have to have the eye for like size of track, size of
Mm-hmm.
poop, and then just like you're gonna have to. I mean, it's gonna be one or the other coming out of winter. Are these bulls or is this the herd? So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if it's the herd, you're like, yeah, this isn't the pocket. You might get lucky and find some raghorns and some stragglers. But if you're really looking for the pocket, the heavenly, it's going to have rubs, beds, poops. You're going to find beds that should have years worth of poops because they bed there so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, you're going to know it because of the sign,
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, that's only for a short window. Like when Eric or anybody goes shed hunting, say June, it's hard to like, now everything's old, the tracks are dried, there's no
Mm-hmm.
snow, the poops are getting dry. But that's where you have to be able to start to learn how to like put a timeline on sign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these tracks are fresh and it's, May. That means they shed 2 months ago. Like, I mean, they could still be around, but let's keep this spot in the back pocket. But in May, you're looking for tracks in March. And what do those look like? Well, that's when you have to put your head together and really pull every resource you can. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is all going on in my head internally. It may never be shared on a video, but has it rained lately? Did it snow in the last couple months? You're putting all these puzzle pieces to try to get the timeline on, say, the tracks or the beds. So you got to become an expert at aging sign to find that pocket. And then again, when it's a dud, you'll know it, dude. I mean, so many people who are new to shed hunting, their first thing is, Eric, you would not imagine the miles I put on and I haven't found one shed. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you are too high in elevation. I'm telling you right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably like, it's where you hunt the deer. It's not where they shed. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't think about that. You can't just aimlessly, you can. And I have found a lot of my spots actually aimlessly wandering around. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're just aimlessly wandering around and it's not popping, well, you're not in the right spot. And
Mm-hmm.
but you got to remember that right spot might be 2 canyons away. So you're just process of elimination. You're going to drop in off a rim. You're going to hit this cut. One thing I like to do, say it's like a pretty big south slope, but they have a lot of cuts in them.
Mm-hmm.
Take the middle of the mountain and run a line. And you're going to start to say, I mean, boom, not a track, boom, not a track. And suddenly it's going to be like, I'm starting to see some tracks. And then the next one, it might be like, dude, brown.
Yeah.
So you do. I know one of the questions you had in our text thread, which you kind of gave me a quick outline, which we haven't followed, which is totally cool because it's a podcast, right? We get to talk
Yeah.
about whatever we
We'll
want.
get to take it wherever we want.
But one of your
Yeah.
questions was, Eric, does miles equal piles? And I'll touch on
Mm-hmm.
that because I do believe so. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not in every case. Like, two things came in my mind was like, well, miles for piles. One guy might sit down and glass and still find more than the guy who did the miles, right? So it can
Mm-hmm.
happen that way, but I would say miles do equal piles
Mm-hmm.
because it's everything from a process to elimination, finding that sweet spot. Once you find that sweet spot, gritting it out because you're in the pocket. If it's thick juniper, cactus, grass, you're not going to glass them. The only way to do it is to grid through that. So
Mm-hmm.
typically, not every time, but miles does equals piles. It doesn't mean you had a group of three that whoever walks the most will find the most because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
variables in shed hunting, but that's why it's so fun. But I'd say in general, if you want to stack, you got to put in the miles, you got to put in the work, but it has to be strategic.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like one of the sayings, and people who have listened to me in the past probably have heard this, is and the same applies to hunting, or at least in my mindset when I'm doing it. And this also applies to like your heavenly, like this looks heavenly, but they're not here, or the sign's not here, or the sheds aren't here. Is just they're not always where you want them to be. They're just where they're at, and then you put the puzzle pieces together. Like we have to work backwards in order to find the sheds, because
Yeah.
it's you got to like find out, and there's so many revolving factors when it comes to picking up sheds too. It's almost like archery, like all these different things have to come together, because
Yeah.
the pressure can move them, the pressure from humans or coyotes or mountain lions, and just their basic pressures can move them out of areas too early. The snow lines, the weather, the winter kills. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many different factors that can change it year after year too, because one year we have a good winter, the next it's crazy, and the snow line pushes them up or down, or whatever the case. So I feel like there are so many factors that come into it, but like you said, it's just not wasting time in a dead zone, and just kind of ruling out and checking off the block, like, okay, this
Mhm.
spot doesn't have it, let's move to the next canyon. I do like that line that you said, where you're like, if you're just like really in a spot where you're like, I have no idea if they're here, because say you didn't get to pre-scout that year, or you go to a totally different state, but you're putting the pieces together, and that middle line, like you walk that middle line, you're gonna find where they're most comfortable in that mountain range. And it
Yeah.
could be 3 canyons over from the one you thought that was absolutely perfect, or the
Mhm.
first one. So
That's the fun of it, though, is like
yeah.
it's all a game, and you're out there. And for those of us who are, addicted to this stuff, it's like you truly are putting those puzzle pieces. And whether you e-scouted a spot, say you e-scouted a spot and you went out there, and like you said, the sign was right, and you find that brown, that's so rewarding to be like, I knew it, right? So you're going to hit some home runs, you're going to hit some grand slams, but you're also going to strike out, and that's what is so fun about this is it's a game, and every year it can change. I've seen mountain ranges just, a portion of the mountain burns, and suddenly, like, now the winter range is like, 2 years later they're in the burn, and your best spot is no longer the best. That's what people got to remember. Like, they change. There's pressure, there's people, there's predators, there's fire, there's, water can change year to year. In Arizona, New Mexico, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So your job is just to go out there and just figure it out, and that's why it's so fun.
That's why it's so rewarding too. Yeah, when you do those miles and finally come up on some shits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Arizona's been dry this year. Yeah, I feel like it totally shifted a little bit when it comes to like the deer rutting, even just
Yeah.
how dry it has been.
It seems
So
like it's later. Everyone that had those OTC tags were just kind of
mhm.
saying it took forever.
It did, yeah. Because last year I killed a buck on like January 10th, and we were talking like these bucks were fighting, these bucks were running all over the place every day we went in there. And then this year, my buddies and we went back in there, and we could not find like just near the same amount of deer, like
Mm-hmm.
two here, one here, and we were like, what in the world? There's just no water, and a lot more pressure, I guess, too, from people. So I don't know, we couldn't get it figured out.
Well, I am
But
curious to see how this year pans out for a lot of these states. Like Utah has got a pretty low snowfall. Arizona, I'm sure New Mexico. So that's going to
yeah.
change things up a little bit. And, it's obviously going to give access to a lot of roads that otherwise may be snowed in or muddy.
Mhm.
So it's going to be a whole new ball game.
Yeah, it'll definitely shake things up. And actually, surprisingly, last night we got a little bit of rain here, like in the valley. Like I live in like Phoenix area, Mesa, and then I think up north there got like some sprinkles of snow. So it's kind of late. I've
Yeah.
had years where we're like fully snowed in like December,
Mm-hmm.
and then now, like this one, it's like we just get like a sprinkle of snow here and there.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting, because there are a lot of roads that shut down up that direction. So with that being said, just some of my had just like a couple more was like snacks in the pack when you guys are shed hunting. You have like go-to snacks and stuff that you like?
Yeah, I can go into Walmart and I'm like automatic. So my go-tos are like I always have these things: Ritz crackers, tuna packets, sometimes oysters. It's like the cheap brand of chocolate chip granola bars, the chewy ones. Not the Quaker.
Mhm.
I don't like those. I like the off-brand for some reason.
Mhm.
Gushers are kind of a top one that I throw in there just for something that's kind of like candy.
Yeah.
I really try my best to like when I'm doing like day hikes or even like overnighters, kind of limit my food so I'm at least burning a lot of calories and kind of like trimming the fat.
Hmm.
So that and like we use peaked meals quite often for your dinner. Hot dogs and tortillas, I'm kind of known for that. I'm not saying I invented it, but like everyone, comments come like at Hunt Expo, like, dude, I tried the hot dog and the bratwurst and the tortilla. Like, you're right, that's pretty good. Tortillas are good for anything, peanut butter and
Yeah.
honey,
Peanut
like
butter is so
tuna.
good in a tortilla. Yeah.
So those are usually in there. If I get into the candy, which I try to limit, is like Snickers and Reese's peanut butter cups are my top two. And Mountain Ops, like, those trail packs, I always have Ignite and now Hydrate, those two. That's kind of the basics of it, man. I'm so simple. Like
Yeah.
going into this year though, things are going to change because like I said, I'm on that animal based diet.
Hmm.
And shed hunting, I usually like get skinny fat. Your body just like your mouth, like you're dehydrated and you're depleted. I'm eating
Hmm.
food, but it's like no nutrition, and I'm not eating enough because I'm walking 10 to 15 miles a day.
Hmm.
So this year's goal is to pack better quality snacks and food,
Hmm.
which is jerky, tuna, maybe some homemade meat sticks.
Hmm.
I'll probably I don't know. It's so tough, right? Like, how do you
It
go
is.
out
Yeah.
there and eat like healthy actual meals?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I know
try.
when I'm trying to stay on track, yeah, I'll usually make like egg white burritos or like something that you can just like grab and go that's like I'll have like an egg white burrito and then like what I call deeritos. So it's just like literally just like
That's it.
ground deer taco season and rolled in a burrito.
Dude,
So
that's
I'll just be
class.
a deerito.
Yeah, I
And
got
they're just so good because you can just be walking and eating your burrito. I feel like burrito, you can just roll anything up in a
yeah,
burrito.
that's super easy. Do you try to get like low carb tortillas or real tortillas, or what do you
I
use?
I do. I usually try to get low carb ones. Yeah, just to kind of like keep track because I'll track my macros. So
Mhm.
like you said, it is tough when you're like hiking and you're like still trying to stay on track with your macros, but then also doing all those miles. Sometimes you're like, man, you sit down finally and you're like, I need a snack, just
Yeah.
something like whatever. So I do like, I mean, if it fits in there too, and try to keep it to a minimum. But I like to throw like peanut M&Ms in there is a good one for me because it's again just something that's like on the go.
Oh yeah,
Just keep moving.
I need to add Rice Krispie treats on those. Like I can, dude. We were at a cold hunt, Colorado third season with Nicholas actually. And
Yeah,
they were sitting by a fire when I found the bulls we ended up killing. And I was so cold. I ran over there and I pulled out my Rice Krispie treat and it's just rock solid frozen. So I came up with this idea to toast it on the fire. And dude, if anybody wants to take their Rice Krispie treat to the next level, toast it over a fire.
yeah,
Dude, it was so good.
and
Not
it
only does
probably
it melt,
moistens up that marshmallow.
yeah, it
Yeah,
like melts the marshmallow, but if you
yeah,
brown it like a marshmallow would, that took it to the next level. But yeah, that's going to be the next thing moving forward for me is like trying to improve the quality of food I eat while I'm on the road and in the field. And
yeah.
that's going to start with shed season because this is easy. I'm committed to the animal based diet for 8 weeks. I'm
Hmm.
4 weeks in, and honestly, you know how it is. At 4 weeks, you're automatic, no cravings, you're enjoying your
Hmm.
meals. This is easy while I'm home.
Hmm.
When I'm driving 13 hours and staying in a hotel, sleeping in my GFC or on the dirt,
Yeah,
then you're just kind of forced to eat some of that processed junk that we all know is not
yeah,
great for us.
yeah.
So I got to do better.
You're gonna have to just carry a steak in your backpack.
Pocket steak. We call those pocket steaks.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, it is good to eat good though when you're doing stuff like that. Like it just feels good at the end of a long day and you just got a nice freaking big old steak on the thing. I mean, you guys hike into like backcountry type stuff too, but like for me, I have a, what do they call them? The Blackstone. So I have a Blackstone in my truck, and that's like for like the end of the day meal, it's like
Yeah.
that stuff's waiting for me to toss on. Or sometimes I'll just cook it ahead of time and then just heat it up there. So it's just
Yeah.
quicker, easier. Like in the morning, if you're getting rolling, you already have like 10 burritos laid out in your ice chest. You just heat them up and then throw them in the pack. And whenever you're hungry, they're already warm.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to steal your Dorito for sure because I live off my wild game. I have so much wild game and a lot of burgers. So I'll just start making Doritos.
Yeah, so good though. I mean, they absolutely hit in the field when you're just like, all right, I need something, but it's good something, you know. So it's giving you energy, and
Makes me
then
think because I love ground elk meat now with honey. So I'm gonna start taking. I want to do like real tortillas. Like when I traveled to Mexico for the
mm,
first time and had like what is considered like a real tortilla. It's kind of the sourdough of white bread. It's like a real
mhm,
tortilla or this garbage stuff that they make now.
mhm.
I'm gonna have quality tortillas with elk meat and honey, and I'll just
Oh
tack those
gosh,
up, and I'll just be a
yeah.
champion out there.
I'm gonna Yeah, that sounds so good. I'm gonna try that too, actually. I'm gonna try the ground with some honey in it.
Try this.
See how that.
So ground, but season it a little bit, or just salt and pepper,
Mhm.
dipped in butter, and then white rice, and then make a burger bowl. Hit it with the honey like quite a bit, and then hit it with a little salt. Salt's always good,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna have to let me know how you like that because that's my
Uh,
go-to meal right now. That I like live on that meal. I just make my rice cooker with 2 scoops, so I have rice at all times, and then I pretty much
mhm.
always have burger cooked. I just
Yeah.
microwave it and throw some honey on it
Yeah. I use a lot of jasmine rice. I feel like it pairs well with like anything you put it with.
for
It's
sure.
still like a white rice, but it's
Mhm.
still so good. That and then like the cilantro and lime
Oh yeah,
version of that, so
yeah.
good too to pair into like the Doritos. Sometimes I'll just roll the rice in with the meat,
Uh,
roll that thing up, and then you have a full meal all in one.
that's I'll
But
probably I'm gonna steal your idea, and then now that I think about it, like try to prepare. So even if I have to cook them at home, have them ready. Get them in a Ziploc bag, get them in some tin foil. Once you just get out there, you've got good carbs, good proteins, and some good
mm,
honey will give you those sugars. And I'll just
yeah,
be
because
living on Doritos. You wait,
the prep
Shed Tour 2025. I'm going to introduce
Doritos.
Doritos to the world.
Yeah, everyone's gonna like that
Big
idea because
scale.
that's funny. Yeah. No, just one of my last questions though was just, I mean, obviously there's a ton of people that look up to you, including myself, just all around good dude, and then just what you do in the industry, just all the cool stuff you bring out. But like, who everyone looks up to Eric Chesser, so who does Eric Chesser look up to? That was kind of one last thing I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you before we hopped off.
Okay. I'll share my biggest. I'll share my two because there's a lot of little ones, right? So I'll even include the little ones. The little ones, you can't really say little or big, but like the first thing is just everybody. Like
Mhm.
I can be inspired by Shed Crazy. I can be inspired by someone I don't even know on social media or whatever. Like I can find like qualities and things that I want to do or be like across the board. Somebody might be driven in the gym. I can take a piece of that. Somebody might be really good at entrepreneurship. I'm
Mhm.
inspired by that. But the number one person who's in content or is an influencer is Christian Guzman. Do you know him?
I don't, maybe if I seen his thing, but maybe not.
Yep. So I'll give you a rundown. Outside of shed hunting and everything we've talked about, my other passion in life and something I've done since I was 12 to now that without skipping a beat, just like shed hunting, is the gym.
Hmm.
And I have competed. I saw your wife competed on
Hmm.
your
Oh
Instagram.
yeah.
So I've done all that
Yeah.
NPC, NGA,
Yeah.
bodybuilding, men's physique and
Yeah.
board shorts, all the little out angling everybody. So I've done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned a lot from that. Like you learn so much about self control and self
Mhm.
discipline when you commit to those diets and you commit to like, hey, you're going to be on stage X day. And you
Mhm.
start manipulating your diet like you saw at least that your wife did.
Mhm.
But anyways, through that part of my life, I found Christian Guzman. The guy's way younger than me, but I watched him start a YouTube channel. I wasn't there from the very beginning, but I've looked back and watched it. But I've watched him just be a passionate teenager about
Mhm.
helping others get fit. Through that, he started a clothing brand called Alpha Elite, which is
Mhm.
now
Oh
freaking
yeah, I've
big.
heard of that.
He
Mhm.
started a gym in a storage locker unit, which is now Alpha Land.
Mhm.
So I've seen this guy build a gym, build a clothing brand, build an energy drink company, probably have a piece of the pie in supplements somewhere along the way. So, dude,
Mhm.
this is the number one person that I've watched, and I have taken so many of his ideas and I have brought it to my brand and the Hush brand.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from smacking the camera and transitioning to the next one, or like literally, dude, so much. So Christian Guzman, number one, number one.
Yeah.
And I would, if anybody, I just think it's a good idea. If anybody wants to do either a podcast, a YouTube channel, you need to not focus on the hunting industry.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go out, which is what I did, and you need to look at all the industries. You need to start having this analytical mindset where you're like strategically breaking down their videos. Why do they
Mm-hmm.
move the camera when they vlog? Why, okay, if they're sharing a discount code, are they making a revenue share off of that? Like, I think people need to broaden their horizons. That's what I've done with, and Christian has been by far the number one. And so for me, when he did the grand opening of his gym, I went to Texas to meet him. So just like anybody may come to the Hunt Expo to wait in line to meet me, I waited in line. Dude, nobody, I'm not saying I'm big and famous, but like nobody knew who I was. Not one person came up to me to say hello. If you
Yeah.
took me to the Hunt Expo, it's going to be different. But I
Yeah.
was there and I wanted to meet Christian. And I waited in line and I did the, hey man, I know we don't have much time. You're a big inspiration. So I got to tell him like, you have no clue, but you've inspired me to do a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I like that because when people are like, Eric, what's it like to sign autographs? Isn't that silly? Or what's it like to take pictures? And I go, I can relate. And that's because there's someone else over here who is that for me. And that
Mm-hmm.
helps me understand human connection. And that helps me understand how to treat the people that come to me, because I want to treat them like I would hope Christian would treat me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's always a good idea to have people. You can't idolize them beyond belief. They're not God, but you can really
Mm-hmm.
look up and try to be like them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Christian Guzman. And then the next one, and this would have never been my answer until now because I just maybe didn't have a strong testimony, but I want to have the attributes of God.
Mm-hmm.
And that is forgiveness, that is love, that is pray for your enemies, that is help others, that is charity, all those godly like attributes. That's what I want to be like.
Mm-hmm. I
So
mean, those are all good things
those
to
are the
strive for. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. I agree with you on that. Just kind of finding motivation in a lot of different places and people. I mean, it's important. Like you said, I get to see a lot of different things in my like day-to-day job, including the worst of things.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm there for sometimes I meet people on their absolute worst days, whether
Mhm.
it's, what I mean, and I get to be that person that helps kind of guide that experience for them. So for me, it's easy to just like be as nice as possible. I don't have to try to be nice. I just am like compassionate when it
Yeah.
comes to that. Like I try to do what I can for as many people as possible, and I find motivation in the people that come in, even, their stories and
Yeah.
their families and stuff. And it's just like, and I don't do it for the thanks, but sometimes when they thank you, they're just like, how, or they'll ask you like, about how, like, why did you start doing this? Or how did you start doing it? It's stuff like that. Or tell you like, oh, I could never do what you do, and that's okay too.
Mhm.
But like for me, the question I always ask myself, and is another reason why I'm kind of like a lifelong learner, like in my job or anything I do, is just because like the question I'll always ask myself is like, am I doing enough,
Mhm.
for like myself, the people around me, the people I'm treating, like, because sometimes people are literally hanging on to life by a thread,
Mhm.
and I have a huge impact in that. And so it's kind of crazy to have that thought at your fingertips. But then I also look up to so many different people around me. Like you said too, you can just find inspiration in so many different places
For
that you
sure.
look, and just the things that I see on a daily basis. Like I'm constantly like amazed at some of the things that we do. Like, and it's just like sometimes we'll be just thinking like this isn't going well, and all of a sudden boom, somebody's heart starts back up, and it's just absolutely
Yeah.
insane. Like,
That's wild.
like I've seen a doctor call a time of death and felt a pulse on that same patient 2 seconds later,
Gave me the
you know? And
chills.
it's
Yeah, that's wild.
yeah, so it's just like, dude, we're and then it's all of a sudden like we're doing this now, like so it's crazy to see and like find inspiration in all these different people doing all kinds of cool things. So I get to look up to like a lot of different people in the medical field or in my past stuff. Like I almost call it like my past life because I've done so many different things. And so like with the military stuff, I watch a lot of those brands or like those people and what they do, and where they go and all that type of stuff. And then fitness industry is obviously like big in my family. So it's just kind of
So,
cool to have those different avenues to look up to.
well, why don't you
But
answer that same question? Do you have a couple that are like, you're like, Christian Guzman was my big one. Do you got a couple that are your big ones?
um
You're on a
I don't
podcast.
know. I don't know if I like I don't know if I actually do. Maybe mainly like the people closest to me, like people I grew up with, just like the things that they've gone through. So it's like my dad's a big one. Obviously, like most people are kind of look up to their dads, like he's always been there and taught me everything and like how to work hard. I've watched him and it's kind of funny, like you say, like when you're younger, you don't really think about what they endure, and then you become a parent and you like figure out all this stuff. But or also you just kind of become an adult and you figure it out. And he's like told me stories like, yeah, like around this time, like I literally had like $100 in our bank account, like but you make it work, because you have no choice. So, but I don't know if I have any particular like specific names though. It's just like I feel like I'm like I have 100,000 different hobbies and I look up to so many different people that there's not any one person that stands out.
Yeah,
I'm always like my friends and my friends' wives are always like, yeah, you have too many hobbies, like I'd kill you.
that's
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like I relate to that. Like I find inspiration in sometimes the darkest places and darkest moments of others' lives and my own. And I get to see that and I get to witness like honestly how short life is. So with that being said, that's why I like that full circle of like the random acts of kindness and just
Mhm.
what that does to people and yourself. Like I mean, it takes me 2 seconds to fall asleep at night, but like when I hang it up at the end of the day, like I'm fully satisfied with the work I do, like
Mhm.
just in general. But
That's
I don't
good,
know.
man.
So
That's how you should be. You should go to bed and just be like, another thing that Christian does that's all over his gym is proud but never satisfied, right? So,
mhm,
one thing I tried to do this last year, which was a New Year's resolution from not this recent January, but the one before, is just to celebrate my wins and celebrate like my friends and family's wins. It
mhm,
was pretty cool because if I saw anybody complete something that I knew meant a lot to them or someone in my circle, for example, like when Martin Chag killed that big archery buck, it was like,
mhm,
yo, dude, I'll tell him, I'm like, hey, man, one of my goals is to celebrate wins more. And it's, we're not going to rest on our laurels, but like, dude, let's celebrate the win. And I took him to sushi, just sit down and have a guy time and brainstorm
mhm,
life, business, and just try to like take a moment to be proud, but then it's like, hey, what's next? It's always something
mhm.
next. We have to be working towards something or else we just
Yeah.
die inside.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Just literally always working towards something. I built like a garage gym, so I go to the regular gym and then every day before work, like people be like, you're crazy, or like, how
Uh-huh.
many burpees did you do today? I'm like, dude, that's like how I start my morning. Like that elevates my mind, my
Yeah.
body, and my like frequency. Like
Yeah.
when I'm like, all right, I'm ready. Like I walk into work and it's not about me, anymore. It's about whatever's coming through the door. And there's literally no day that's ever been the same. So it's
Yeah.
like you have absolutely no idea what's going to walk through the door until
Yeah.
it does.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, that's kind of how I mentally prepare. It's just like pushing myself and like you said, kind of names, I guess. If I were to name a couple people like Cameron Haynes, David Goggins, I feel like those are like inner voices in my head that are just like,
Mhm.
like just work
Yeah.
harder and harder, like something like that is just like stands out to me, or I've read their books and stuff and it's like you can relate to stuff like that, like you've
Mhm.
done things that they've done and like been places they've been, maybe not to the extent of like 100-mile run, but if I could do that one day, I totally would, you know, or like train for it would be insane. But I mean, just they have that same abundance mindset. Anything that I can do, you can also do.
Yeah.
But then people will still sit there and talk crap to them, you know, like,
Oh yeah.
and it's just like,
It comes with the territory, man. If you're gonna put
yeah,
yourself out there, people are gonna throw shade at it, you know.
oh
But
yeah,
when you understand psychology and you understand that, like, you know, happy people lift people, like
hmm
unhappy people bring them, like,
hmm
unfortunate, like for the, like when I see negative comments, I'm just like, sucks to be you, because like clearly you're not in a good space. You're going through
hmm
something. You're trying for somebody else to validate your negativity, which will make you feel
hmm
good. And that's the crabs in the bucket, right? You know, the
hmm
crabs in the bucket analogy?
It's, I don't know if I've heard it before, but when you say that, it kind of makes sense. One
Yeah.
trying to
So,
pull the other down.
yes. So
Yeah.
that's the story, is like you can have a whole like 5 gallon bucket full of crabs, and if they were smart, they'd all help each other to pull each other out. But when one starts to get away, one will pull it back down, right? A crabs in a bucket is like everyone's good with like being down here, but when someone is successful in business, or one of the family members is now losing weight while the rest is overweight, they want to pull them down to their comfort level because they're jealous to see them, you know, carry on. So that's like
Yeah,
crabs in a bucket. But yeah, when it comes to putting yourself out there to be vulnerable, whether you're going to make content, do a podcast, tell a story, it's just part of the
definitely.
piece of it to get hate.
Yeah, no, I'm not afraid of that criticism. I mean, I know I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert. That's why I like talking to people who are just at the top of their game and who love to have that conversation and share, and hopefully other people out there find it, listen to it, get something out of it. And I would love to see people picking up sheds because of it. So
For sure.
if anybody listening finds any sheds and they're like, "Hey, I was listening to your episode with Eric Chesser, and he gave me a great tip on there, and I
Yeah.
walked right into this giant set of browns," and post it and let us see it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Tag us. You know, that's the thing, is guys like us will celebrate that person's win, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, who said
Yeah.
it? David Goggins, maybe? Like, you'll never find a hater doing better than you.
Mhm.
It's so true, man. People who are finding success, they're just networking with people. Their conversations are different. They're
Mhm.
talking about their next project, their next shed season, how they're going to edit their videos, what can we do an event to give back to the community? Like that's the
Mhm.
topics where
Mhm.
people who are in a negative headspace, maybe it's because they're going through something, maybe they're just kind of wired negative and they have a lot of
Mhm.
self-doubt within themselves, so now they're spreading that, but then they find people who are similar, and then they become that crowd of like, those guys are dumb, they don't, you know, they don't know what they're doing, they're trying to
Yeah.
be famous, and they come up with all these stories to
Yeah.
justify how they feel.
I see, I feel like I just came across there's like these negative meme hunting pages, and I just
Mhm.
seen one. I can't even remember what it was, but I swear it was about you, and I was just cracking up. I'm like, "Holy cow,
Oh,
man,
I'm
these guys
sure
just come up with the craziest
it's
things."
predictable. We've got the ears in the hat is going to be a top target on me. We've
Yeah.
got probably, you know, tighter pants, like my joggers, my workout gear are maybe like not baggy enough. And you know, anybody who just thinks like, oh, he got lucky or he's on daddy's money, you know, those are all
Yeah.
the top things. And
Yeah.
most of these people, if they just come and we did a shed hunt or a hunt together, I guarantee we'd sit around the fire and have a lot in common if they just let go of their assumptions, and we'd probably have a good
Yeah.
time and be friends.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes it comes back down, and they think it comes down to ego, but it's really like a projection of ego more or
Mhm.
less. But eh,
Usually what
it
it
exists. Hopefully they find what they're looking for and
is. No kidding.
make peace with it, you know?
I feel bad that when people are so, I've been very blessed. And I honestly think I learned this just recently driving with my dad in the truck to, you know, I went up to Logan, Utah. I was like,
Mhm.
dang, I think I really got my like upbeat, optimistic, you know, like I can do anything type of mental attitude from my dad. Some
Mhm.
people are just not wired that way. And
Mhm.
I am so lucky that I have just this mindset of like, a more positive mindset. Like everything is optimistic versus pessimistic or whatever. That if I feel bad for people who don't have that, I hope that people who don't can recognize it through life and wisdom and then retrain their brain to think positively. Because
Yeah.
that's got to be like a life sentence of unhappiness to just be a
Yeah.
negative. And that goes with self-doubt, like not believing in yourself, not all that stuff is just negative. And man, if there's anybody out there who's listening to this that you're kind of like, yo, that's me, or yo, my friends have told me I'm the negative one in the group, like you got to do something to train and rewire your brain to be optimistic. And when you have that optimistic mindset, it's just like sky's the limit on what you do in your marriage, your business, like literally anything.
I think reading books is big. I feel like to help like that mindset. I've read so many different books that I'm like, you're just like fired up. I don't read like storybooks. I'm talking like I've always read like self-help books. Like obviously I read like Cam Haines and David Goggins, but like other people that have absolutely nothing to do with hunting, like the 10X rule or like the 5 a.m. club and like different things like that, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
it just gets the ball rolling, and that snowballs into just bigger and better things and more positivity, and just like negativity breeds more negativity, and then same thing with positivity, you know, like just like you said, that abundance mindset is huge when it comes to literally just open arms to life, you know, in general. But maybe I don't know, maybe people listen to different random podcasts throughout the thing. So if someone's listening to this and they don't even shed hunt, then that's whatever passion that is that
Yeah.
like truly lights their fire,
It's the same
that's what life
principle.
is about.
It's the same
Yeah.
principles. Just apply it to whatever it is that you're passionate about.
Oh yeah. And like I said, life is so short, and I'm constantly reminded of that in like what I do, but
Yeah.
it's so short that I'm like, I am not going to spend time just being in a negative mindset. And it happens time to time, and you got to reset, but it's like, I'm not going to spend too much time there because I know that time's limited. So with that being said, you know, I appreciate your time on here
Absolutely,
and
man.
everybody listening, you
Been
know,
fun.
so yeah, it's been awesome. So just a quick plug in all your stuff, just in case anybody hasn't already, which I'm sure most people know, but your YouTubes and Hush and all that
Yeah.
stuff and Rack Snacks.
Yeah, personal stuff. Eric_Chesser on Instagram. Eric Chesser Outside is the name of my personal YouTube channel. Racksnacks.com is RAKSNAKS.com. Then the Hush brand online on the website for like the merchandise is gethushin.com. The YouTube is Hushin. Our brand name is kind of Hush. So we did a bad job in the beginning to kind of like pick one. So you can find us on pretty much any platform under Hushin or Get Hushin.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So
All right.
invite everybody, man. I like to say that too. You know, the hunting industry can be pretty cutthroat. It's obviously male dominated. You get all these alpha males, whatever, all this stuff. I want to invite anybody and everybody to come watch Hush. I don't care if you hunt with a bow. I don't care if you hunt with a gun. I don't care if you shoot only whitetail or you're chasing the grand slam of sheep. I want our brand to be open arms to everybody to come learn. Hopefully we can give you some education and some entertainment. And yeah, it's an open invite to literally everybody. I don't care where you're from, what you believe, what you do, what you use. Come check out Hush.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did watch that Trip Bull video after we podcasted with DR,
Yep.
and it was awesome. And I even told Jordan that. I said, I watched that video, and what you said at the end, I
Yeah.
mean, that hit home for sure. It was awesome.
Yeah,
So
man.
everyone definitely needs to watch that stuff because you guys put out a ton of great content. But
Thank you.
that was some good stuff. I appreciate everybody listening to Shedcast, and follow along. We're heading right into shed season, so looking forward to all that. And then we'll see what everyone else can dig up. So thanks again.